welcome to another, we do a Man-to-Man Mondays, and a guest this week is Jeff Wilson, who's been a friend for over 20 years, which is a kind of a recurring theme. A lot of the people that are on here are friends for over 20 years, but a good friend, guy who played a lot of basketball with and had a lot of fun with, and been around him and his family. And this year we had we usually play on Thanksgiving. We get together and play basketball. And we haven't played for quite a while, probably at least a couple years, right? And some of the guys that showed up hadn't played with us for 10 years. But we had a bit of a scary experience that turned out to be a really awesome experience, and maybe have you share a little bit about that and go from there.
Okay. Well, most people watching this probably have heard, because it went around really quick, thanks to our amazing community. But Thanksgiving morning this year, I actually was dead on the basketball court at just after 10 a.m. with a bunch of buddies playing basketball, my son and some of his high school buddies included, and kind of a humbling, eye-opening experience to find out you have 100% included LAD, artery, and I just went down right on the basketball court after playing for 2 hours with these guys, and maybe that's what I get for not playing for 2 years. But a little bit about my kind of what led up to that is, obviously, like Chris, we both have boys playing basketball, both on Ogden High's basketball team. And we just like to play, and we like to get out with our boys. That's kind of what we live for. So this Thanksgiving, I hadn't really played with Braden for quite a while. We golf, we do other stuff, but it was just about going and playing basketball. So the night before, Ogden High played a basketball game up in Mountain Crest. Braden played a lot of the game, hurt his leg, and that night before he went to bed before Thanksgiving, asked if we were going to go play basketball. And I said, buddy, your leg hurts. If you want to go, we'll go. Set your alarm. And so he went to bed. I didn't think much of it. Got up Thanksgiving morning like I normally do, just after 4 a.m. That's my get up time. I do. Yeah, I know I'm old.
I don't know how you do that.
Go to bed at 8 and get up at 4. I get up in the mornings. That's when I do my personal stuff. That's where I work out. That's when I do any kind of spiritual improvement, studying, prayer. And so that morning I said my morning prayer, knelt down, said my prayer like I normally do, and just took some time on the couch, with it being Thanksgiving, to just process some stuff and get ready for the day and be thankful. And I just had a strong impression, whether you're spiritual or not. For me, it just said, something's going to happen to you playing basketball today. And so that kind of freaked me out. I don't need to tweak my back, blow a knee out. I'm old. I need to work. And, I kind of sat there on the couch, hoping Braden wouldn't get up in about 2 hours. And then I had a feeling come over me, the exact same thing, that just said, you need to go play basketball with your son. And I really felt like, man, if I go, is this the last time I'll ever play ball with Braden? And so I kind of was conflicted. Why would something tell me to go when something bad's going to happen? And so I kind of tried to rationalize that. And as I sat there, and Braden's alarm went off, I didn't hear it, but I hear his feet hit the floor above me, and he came down just looking like crap. I mean, his eyes, he looked like a teenage boy at 7:15 in the morning on a Saturday, but it was Thanksgiving. He said his leg hurt, and all he said was, Dad, are we going? And I had that conflicted feeling. I said, let's go. I said, that was our goal, to go play together. I had that overriding feeling that even though something bad might happen, I needed to be there and play with my son. So we went. Great time as always. Our old crew, lots of guys that I respect and have been around for years. High school boys, Chris's little guy, Jake, who's 8th grader, my daughter's age. Just had a great time, winning some games, balling up some fools like old guys try to. And then just after 10 o'clock, it's the last game. I can still remember, up 21-18. We had just scored, and I had no prior feelings of like that left arm pain, jaw pain, heart, nothing.
Still felt fine.
So as we're running back, 1 point from winning and just scored, I actually say to Braden, I kind of yelled out, you were sitting out at that time. Yeah. I said, we need to get a hold and score before I have a freaking heart attack. And that's the last thing I said. And Braden reminded me that when
Yeah.
he saw me in the emergency room. So I go down and I'm lights out from what I'm told, pretty much dead. And that's when some amazing guys, these, friends, but neighbors and people we played with for decades jumped into action. And I come to on the way out into the
Ambulance.
with the ambulance, with the EMTs in the courtyard of Ogden High, kind of like, what the heck just went on? My wife's there, and I go to the hospital, and little by little, things start to get pieced together. While I'm in the emergency room, waiting to go into surgery, a text goes out from our neighborhood and our church, and it was Thanksgiving, so it just spread like wildfire. And that night, I think when I came out about an hour later of surgery, I had 70 texts. All we did was text people back. But all we heard was, a friend reached out from Italy. Friends, people said, we were with family in Seattle. We were in St. George. We were everywhere. And everybody basically said they stopped and said a family prayer, which is very humbling for a community to, and I know it was Thanksgiving and it kind of touched everyone to say, hey, we're thankful, but let's say a prayer for somebody else right now, which I think all those prayers gratefully, came into play and helped out.
Yeah.
But we can go back a little bit. That's kind of what I remember. And then as we go back and I start talking to you and to others who are there, we piece together a lot of, I'd say, minor miracles or individual miracles from each person that led up to a recovery. And basically from what the cardiologist said is once you hit the floor with a fully included LAD, you have about a 10% chance of survival. So that might be considered.
And if they told you that before, you thought, these guys are that I got to look to save me.
Yeah, I got these old fools that probably should go down before me.
With a 10% shot, exactly. Well,
so that's kind of the story leading up to it. My personal feelings in that morning, and my son coming down that made me go, or else if he didn't come down, I wasn't going to wake him up. And from what the cardiologist has said, something was going to happen heart attack wise in the next little bit because of that full blockage. Yeah. So I was in the right place with the right guys at the right time where everything came together to save my life. I could have been driving. I could have gone to bed one night and never got up. I could be at my office by myself. I could be running and just go over in the hills. So to be where I was with these guys who were willing to jump into action. So when we get to the emergency room, obviously the head EMT followed us in, and I could hear him speaking to my wife and just how amazed they were at my condition for what I had just gone through, that they really didn't have to do much to me in the ambulance. And they were overwhelmed. Just, I heard him say to my wife, Amy, there's rules, there's HIPAA concerns, but this is an amazing situation of community and how people came into play and got to a situation where the EMTs didn't have to do much to save my life because 5 or 6 normal nerdy dudes saved my life. And
bunch of average Joes.
And we're all for that. I've talked to the fire marshal, the fire chief, and obviously there'll be some recognition. I think everybody realizes as a community, it took a lot of people to be in the right spot to save me, and there'll be some recognition for that down the road. So why don't you tell a little bit about why I'm out cold turkey on Thanksgiving?
Yeah.
What
one thing before I get to that too is I remember when they were rolling you away and you were like semi-coherent, but you were breathing. The one guy looked right at a few of us, I don't know, just in general, and said, I don't know what you guys did, but you did it right. And then they rolled you. And we were all just, like, whoa. But my perspective is, I didn't hear the part where, you said, let's get a stop, but I knew that was exactly right. Because that's totally what you would be saying. We got to stop these, idiots or something. And so we can
and Braden was
win
mad
this thing. Yeah.
When I was in the emergency room, Braden was there. I turned around and said, hey, did we win? I mean, he was mad. So anyway,
we didn't finish. We'll continue that maybe in February, March. But I had stepped out. Hunter Clark, I told him, take my spot. Our team had won, but I said, take my spot, And I went and sat out, and Rob Matasic had sat out, and Andy took his shoes off, Blodgett, and he was going to sit out too. And so the three of us were just sitting there and talking about who knows what. These guys are playing. We knew it was the last game because I had just looked at my phone. It was after 10 a.m. and I knew that. So I'm like, man, we've already been playing for 2 hours. I thought that was pretty good for a bunch of old guys. And then I hear, as we're talking, I literally hear kind of a faint thud, and I look over and I see somebody go down. I don't know who it is. And I think, well, it's, people get injured all the time, but the odd thing in my mind was this person's not moving. Usually when somebody gets injured, they're rolling around and holding an ankle or something. And I couldn't tell who it was. And I got up, and we all got up, the three of us, and got started that way. And about 2 or 3 steps in, I somebody had said, right as I was saying it, call 911. And so I grabbed my phone. And by the time I go to there, from my perspective, I'm standing over your feet and looking at you, and you're gray. I can tell something's not right. And first we thought, very quickly, you were shaking and rolled on your side, and you may have gotten smacked pretty good a few times to wake you up. We thought he passed out. Not the case. And we could see, and I still distinctly remember watching GB's 2 fingers go right here and on this side of you. And I was thinking, and there's no pulse. I'm thinking, and I'm on with 911, and they're talking. And then Andy slides in, and he's got a defibrillator machine. And when the really cool thing for Andy's perspective, he'd just been trained on it, and so had Hunter on CPR and all these things just recently. And there never was a defibrillator there at all. It's a new thing that's been going in. So, and all of these things lined up, you being there for one, the defibrillator, and then you had, nobody missed a beat. Immediately, Hunter was just started doing chest compressions, and Rob slides in, and he's giving mouth to mouth. And the amazing thing, I reflect on it still, nobody talked. We weren't talking other than to what was going on, and they didn't coordinate. They just did it. And then, they just did everything in unison, like it was like they just practiced it. It was pretty amazing. And GB was just kept your head and your airway open, and everything was just going smooth. And literally, as we're, there was a couple of really cool things that the 911 person, who I don't even know who it is like asking, which gym is it? Is it the Phil Russell or the auxiliary? And I said auxiliary, and I thought, how do they know this? And then they asked, which side? Is it the courtyard by the auto shop or whatever? And all these things. I'm going, man, this is crazy. How do these people know this? And so then I'm telling all these boys, hustle out there and get at every exit. And as you were, laying there, and as sitting there, and all these things are happening, and the defibrillator is getting, I don't even know, Andy's handling that and getting it ready to go. And I think it might have even, we'd shocked you, but it was working, but everything wasn't working. He'd taken some shallow breaths. And then Jace, my nephew, had come back in and said, hey, he was outside and thought to come back in. Hey, let's give him a blessing. And I hear Andy say, give him a blessing. And immediately, this might sound weird to a lot of people watching this, but they stopped. They stopped giving chest compressions, and everybody stopped. I held the phone out, and Hunter gave him a blessing that he, and I can't even remember. I just remember as soon as that ended, it was like, this everything seemed okay. And Jeff started, getting even more regular with his breaths. And it was just pretty amazing, the feeling in that gym for all of us, where that we knew, that there's obviously a higher power. There's something, if you didn't believe it or know it, you knew that there was something there that was aiding us, because we weren't geniuses. We weren't the smartest guys in the world. We were just doing the best we could with, and there was something helping us, and, it was, it was God. I totally 100% believe it, and know it. And I know everybody that was there felt it too. And we had a lot of different dudes there, but everybody I know felt it. And
and Andy Blodgett, so he shared with us, and he had just been trained again in 2 weeks prior on the AED, that they never really when are we ever going to use this?
Yeah.
But they knew where it was. He knew how to use it. He and Hunter had both been trained.
Yep.
I thought it was interesting when Andy said, and I didn't know this until last night when he said it, that as soon as I went down and he saw everybody rush, his first, he didn't even know. He just got up and he didn't know why, and he just ran for the AED.
Yeah.
He would just gravitated there. And it was like everybody knew where they should be. And so I spoke with the athletic director, Ross Arnold, and there is a video. I'd like to see it someday, but he said you probably don't. But he said, it's amazing. It's far away. You can see you go down. Everybody comes over and you can tell they're concerned, trying to smack me, wake me up. And then he goes, in an instant, it was just like every single person on my chest, legs up, chest compressions, mouth to mouth. Andy's out the door. You're on 911. Everybody kind of went. And they're, like he said, I can't hear, but it didn't look like anything was being verbalized. It was just action.
Yeah, and he's right. There wasn't a lot of verbal talking.
Besides trying to wake me
except
up.
people saying, "Come on, Jeff. Come on, Jeff. You know, you keep fighting." That was what was being said, really. And yeah, it was an amazingly scary experience, right? Obviously, we were pretty I mean, as I think about it now, I mean, pretty panicked and worried about you, but you know, and after the EMTs and the paramedics, they rolled you out, we were all just standing there, you know, kind of scattered around that area, you know, between the baseline and the free throw line or the 3-point line of that court. And we just
like, what just happened?
Yeah, we were like, what just happened to us? What happened to Jeff? We didn't really know what to do, and it was an emotional, like, it was high intensity. We were all just, and then there was a lot of tears. Like, I know all of us, Rob. I mean, I'm looking at everybody's breaking down, crying, like, we can't believe, we just are hoping he doesn't die now. That, you know, we did enough or whatever. And you know, looking at these boys too, these teenage boys. I mean, your son, and looking at everybody, going, wow, that was a big deal. And speaking of your son, I mean, you want to talk about Braden a little bit and his perspective of it?
Yeah, I mean, so I was worried more about him. He had to witness that. I mean, I was
we were
out.
worried about that too.
I was out. So, so I'm out cold. And when I came to in the hospital, I look over and Braden was sitting there. And I think the first thing I said to him was, obviously, did we win? And he kind of laughed. And then he goes, we didn't finish. And I said, buddy, I'm just glad we went and played together. And I hadn't relayed to him yet that morning experience in my personal kind of spiritual study, that I had those feelings of something's going to happen bad to you, but you got to go. You got to go play with your son. And then Braden shared with us, obviously, last night that he didn't want to go. And when he got up that morning and he came down, he just felt like, I want to go play with my dad. And so I hadn't heard that until he shared it last night, which impacted me. Like I said, every single person there did something that put them in the right spot at the right time, or put me there, or you know, vice versa.
Yep.
But I had a great opportunity that night when my family came up, when they could come visit, to explain to them what had happened and felt in the morning, and how Braden coming down and basically making me go saved my life.
Yeah.
It's one of those things. It put me, you know, the night before we were going to play at the church. I don't think we mentioned that. We were going to go play at the church up by the event center, no defibrillator. And the chance of me surviving would have been a lot smaller. And so to have changed locations to the school that night before was huge.
Yeah.
My son making me get up that morning and go, huge. Your son, Mac, reached, you know, we had a conversation last night. We got a great chance to hear from all these guys. But your son, Mac, I had never heard that he reached out to Hunter Clark, who did the CPR.
Who said he wasn't going to come.
He never responded. So we didn't think he was coming.
Yeah.
Your son reaches out to him, looks up to him, and reached out at midnight.
Yeah. And
Hunter decides to go play basketball.
Yep.
So everybody had a role in making somebody be there and be a part of that miracle.
Yep.
So it was good for me to explain to my son, it's okay as a man to talk not only about your feelings, because he had never really opened up about this until last night, and he never really opens up at all. So that was big for me. It was big for my parents and family to see Braden kind of get teary-eyed and talk about it.
Which a lot of
teenagers aren't going to do it. Your boys each spoke, you know. But for me to say, Braden, and he did tell me, he said, you know what, when it came down to it, Jace came in, your nephew. He was going out to get the ambulance, and Braden flat out said, Jace came in and said, give him a blessing. And if you ask me what I would have preferred, CPR, AED, defibrillator, or the priesthood blessing, I would always take the blessing. And I told my son that. And I said, God gives us so many things, doctors, nurses, apparatuses like the AED to shock you. But when it comes down, when you bring him into the equation, it's amazing. I mean, I think that's what like everybody said last night, there was just a feeling of calm, and we kind of knew what to do, and this was going to work. Yeah. And I think that only happens when you bring in a higher power, and it's okay to talk about that. Yeah. I mean, I'm never going to be ashamed to say, you know, sorry, I can't say why I'm here and other people aren't.
Yeah. Yep. It's true. A lot of people think that or will ask it,
Yeah,
but it's the thing.
I have no
a
idea
lot of times
why.
it doesn't work.
Yeah, when
for
the
somebody
doctor
else.
says you have 10% chance, 9 out of 10 are going to die, but you survived. That's kind of that's hard to take.
Yeah.
And so now you got to look at it as, okay, well, I guess I better make better on my second chance, because my first 47 years have been a little iffy.
Yeah, I don't know about that. They've been pretty good. Pretty good. But and that was the thing is we were worried. I mean, I even remember thinking that at the time when they were wheeling away and looking to my left, and there's Braden, and he'd been standing maybe 10 or 15 feet away the whole time, and you could just tell in his face, obviously who wouldn't be affected by seeing their dad, and and I know everybody at one point was going over there. I know Jace went over to him, and and he, after losing his dad a few months ago, but obviously knows what it's like, and everybody was, all of us, we're at different times went up to Braden before he left and just asked him if he's okay, and hey, it's going to be all right, because we were all pretty worried about that, because geez, it was hard enough on us, and it's not our dad, right? It's our friend, and that was a big deal. So so the funny thing about this, normally when we play basketball on Thanksgiving, which we have for 20 years, right? We've pretty much, it's been like an annual thing. I'd have these group texts of tons of people, and normally I would just hit that and text and then follow up to see if we get enough people. And this time I stopped in the middle of it a few days before and started, I don't know, names that came to mind, and I picked those names and I put them in there. And it just made me, in hindsight now, made me really think that the people that were either supposed to be there for you or even for ourselves were all showed up and were there, and which was obviously a good thing, for the way that this all turned out. And then I remember, after I mentioned before, but after they rolled you away, the last thing we were all kind of just spent and emotionally, and didn't know what to do. And Rob just said, hey, let's kneel it right down here. And we all kneeled at mid-court, all of these guys, these, from 13 to 58. We got we just said a prayer, and which was pretty cool, and it was just us that was there, and we didn't, and it just kind of gave us a good feeling. And after that, I mean, I think it helped everybody with a little bit of closure of the situation. So
that's one of my takeaway. I mean, my favorite picture, and I'm glad my wife had the peace of mind to take it. Obviously, I'm on a stretcher going out the courtyard. She comes running in looking for me, or where they're taking me out, and Braden, because she was worried about him. So she peeks in and didn't get the greatest shot, but as she looks in, she saw all you guys kneeling at mid-court, saying a prayer. And so she had the peace of mind to stop. And amid all the turmoil, she said, that is absolutely amazing. And she took a picture. So probably my favorite picture. And when I sent that to people, I just said, good guys, save me. When I was texting later that day, I sent a picture of me like this with the family in the bed. And then I sent that picture of the prayer and just said, good people, good friends saved my life. And
we had no idea anybody was there. We thought it was just us. We thought it was, and what do we do now? Kind of a thought.
Well, it was a private moment, but it was amazing. It was,
Yeah.
Amy said when she took that picture, she was just like, look at that. That's amazing. And then she had a calm, and then, everything worked out. So, so for me, it's the huge takeaway is, number one, not being afraid to act. 6, 7 guys who weren't afraid to jump into action, take on what they were trained, a couple of them, and you who didn't know crap, like you said, just some novices,
just doing what we could do,
just trying to break my ribs.
Everybody taking a role some way, somehow.
Yeah, I'll take them mouth to mouth. It's all good. I'm good to talk about that too. I got some stubble burn, but the takeaway for me is, you're not afraid to act, and you're not afraid to bring God into the equation. It's okay to, and then talk about that. It's nothing to be ashamed of, to say there's a higher power who obviously had to be in play and calm you guys and let you know what to do to bring me back. And I felt that. I mean, I felt like, the AED, the defibrillator, thank you. I'm sore as heck from Hunter. He didn't break any ribs, but I'm sore. Like you said, I was pushing as hard as I could. But I really think that joining with a higher power, with a blessing, there's nothing that could be greater. And I appreciate that.
Yeah. And one thing to add too, I know on late, that day while you were probably in surgery, we were at my in-laws' house, and we always, every Thanksgiving, go around and talk about what everybody's grateful for. What's the thing you're most grateful for this last year? And it got around to my 13-year-old son, Jake, and he said he is most grateful, and he has a testimony of community, which speaks to all this this community here, and there's community everywhere, but that people just do what they can. Doesn't mean you have to be anything special or perfect. Just do what you can and help those around us, right? And service, which is you're a good example of that. I've known you for a long time, and you're always serving other people. And the biggest thing too in all this is, I think last night you talked about where we heard everybody's side of it, and it was pretty tender time. But is that it's okay to be vulnerable. I think these young men learn too, and because there's strength in that, and vulnerability in strength. So.
Well, we always say it takes a community to raise our kids, and my
True.
kids always think it took a community to save their dad. So I think that's an awesome.
Yeah.
It takes, even at an older age, people jump in and help you, and it takes everybody.
For sure.
And I appreciate everybody who was there. I really believe was there for a reason that day.
100%. We're grateful that you're still alive and that you're still here to keep doing what you're doing.
Thanks, brother.
Appreciate you.
Appreciate you.
Love you.
Love you.